Could some young defensive linemen contribute early for the Oklahoma Sooners? Brent Venables seems to think so. Coming up on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit fanduel.com/locked-on to get started. My name is John Williams. You can follow me on Twitter at John9Williams. My buddy here is Josh Helmer. You can follow him on Twitter at JoshOnRef. You can also hear him Monday through Friday from 9 to noon on the KREF Sports app. And Josh, Brent Venables met with the media on Wednesday, as well as a contingent of Oklahoma players. And the biggest news to come out of that media scrum was that Julie Venables, Brent Venables' wife, is now cancer-free. It was something that was revealed last summer, and now it is done, gone. Congrats to Julie, to Brent, and to the whole Venables family for being able to fight through this and get through this over these last few months to a year. So big news, trumps everything that's football related that came out of the story today. But we wanted to start with that and just say congratulations to the Venables family for being able to get past that. But on the football side of things, Josh, Brent Venables had a lot of just interesting nuggets that he dropped in the first media availability of the spring. And probably the one that stood out the most was that the young defensive linemen that Oklahoma brought in the 2024 recruiting cycle have an opportunity to contribute early. We discussed the Jacob Lacey medical retirement earlier this week and how that does leave a bit of a hole in Oklahoma's defensive line depth chart. Well, you just signed 5-star defensive tackle David Stone, 4-star defensive tackle, and my favorite player of the class, Jaden Jackson. Nigel Smith, another 4-star defensive lineman that could play inside, could play outside. So, Josh, what does this mean? Brent Venables is already saying, hey, look, these guys are ready to come in and contribute now.
Well, first things first on the open, fantastic news with Julie Venables. And unfortunately, I think, I shouldn't say you, but myself at times maybe a little guilty of this. And I think collectively Oklahoma fans just naturally in terms as competitors and fans that want to see a winner, we probably at times collectively forgot what Brent Venables and his family was dealing with last season, just from a family standpoint of battling cancer. And so I would imagine that coach was pretty good at compartmentalizing and focusing on football when it was time to focus on football. But that could, from a football standpoint, do wonders for Brent Venables to just free him up emotionally and mentally to go be the type of football coach that everybody wants him to be. But obviously much larger than that is happy for Brent and happy for Julie that they've gotten apparently a clean bill of health. I can't even imagine what that's like battling cancer as a family, and to find out that you're cancer free is an incredible wondrous thing. So very happy to hear that. And it could pay dividends for Oklahoma from a football standpoint as well. For OU defensive lineman, I mean, Brent Venables wasn't quiet about it today. He said that, yes, this group of young defensive linemen, John, they have a chance to contribute early, which we sort of surmised as much that the Jacob Lacey, unfortunately, more blood clot issues, another pulmonary embolism, and that ended his football playing career. And you're talking about somebody there that's 400 some odd snaps about, right? Rounding up a little bit last season in that regard. But that meant that Oklahoma, and probably already with the young guys, you just based on the recruiting ranking and the star power, and you flip on the tape, I flip on the tape, and here we go with David Stone and Jaden Jackson and others in this class for Oklahoma. But now out of necessity as well, especially on the interior of this Oklahoma defensive line, it looked like the writing was on the wall that maybe those young guys could step in and contribute immediately. And Brent Venables came out as much and said today, he didn't guarantee that David Stone's starting or that Jaden Jackson's playing, 50% of the snaps, but he said these guys are prepared, John, to be contributors early, which I think is significant.
Yeah, here's kind of more what he said. He says, we got good numbers there. We don't have good experience. That's a position where we got to get better, get guys better. I love the group of guys, really do. It's a hungry, talented group of players. And I mean, that could very well mean you're getting a Jaden Jackson and a David Stone on the field early in this thing. I think Grayson Halton, Ashton Sanders, Marcus Strong will obviously have something to say about the defensive tackle competition as well. But you kind of need all those guys to step up, because what do you have? You have Dejon Terry, and that's really about it. Right now, that's got a lot of experience at the position. Now you've got some guys that have some talent to work with, and Todd Bates is going to really be under the microscope as far as the development of that room goes this offseason. But I mean, we saw Grayson Halton flash in a big way last spring game. Now, can you put it together and carry that over into a fall? Can David Stone? I mean, David Stone talked about how he's bigger, stronger, faster than what he was at IMG Academy. And he was just at IMG Academy 3 months ago. Jaden Jackson is already up 18 pounds to 297. Just being on campus with Jerry Schmidt and Oklahoma's nutritional room. So I wouldn't put it past these guys. I've always said that these guys have the work ethic, the right mentality to come in and earn a spot, not just because they were highly recruited, highly regarded players, but because they're going to go in and they're going to do the work. They've got the right mentality. And that's not that the other guys don't. I'm just saying, if you are a true freshman and you're coming in and you're going to potentially be able to play early at defensive tackle, you're going to have the right mentality to do that. And that takes toughness. It takes discipline. It takes work ethic. It takes not just work ethic on the practice field, but in the weight room, in the nutrition room, in the film room, getting everything right so that you are able to get on the field early. It's not an easy thing to do. You see defensive tackles struggle all the time going from high school to college, from college to the NFL, because the game steps up big time in the trenches. And that's going to be the same thing for David Stone and Jaden Jackson. It's the same thing for those guys that have been around for 1 or 2 years, and Strong and Sanders and Halton. I mean, the game is different. And so there's an adjustment period that happens because the game is so much more difficult in the trenches when you go from high school to college, from college to the NFL. And so if these guys do contribute early, I think that is a great sign for their trajectory. If they don't contribute early, I don't think that says anything about their trajectory, if that makes any sense. Like, I don't think it's a slight against them at all if we don't see them play 300 snaps in year one. I think it's natural for defensive line prospects in particular to have a bit of a slower growth and slower transition to becoming impactful players. I mean, Adepoju Adebaware, a guy that everybody's very, very high on. I don't think he played more than 200 snaps last year. So while, yes, I'm pumped, I'm hyped. I want to see my dude Jaden Jackson on the field, excited to see him just stonewalling centers and mucking up the interior offensive line. I'm just not going to sit here and be like, yep, that's the day one starter is going to play 400 snaps for you. Now, just let's be patient. Again, if they do play a lot early, I think that says a lot about their trajectory in a positive way. But if they don't, I think it's just a matter of time, and they'll eventually earn that opportunity to get on the field and be big time playmakers.
Yeah, as you alluded to, we've got a 5-star sample size to look back at from just this past season on Oklahoma's defensive line and PJ Adebaware, where, yeah, he got snaps, but it wasn't the primary set of snaps for Oklahoma. And I saw some weight room videos making the rounds with PJ, and I'm here to tell you that I think there's a chance that he's going to be getting a bunch of snaps in 2024. It looks like he's starting to physically turn that corner. And that could be similar here with these guys, where maybe they're just a few, one season away, a few more months away. But look, Coach Venables said they've been really good. And the nutrition side with Jaden Jackson in particular, that's impressive. Jaden Jackson, I guess, Brent Venables confirmed it, and this is not shocking, but he'll be a nose tackle for Oklahoma. So it's pretty exciting for OU that these guys, they think that they've got a chance to help them immediately. And I like that Brent Venables understands that clearly they got to be better up front. I mean, it's one of the first things he said today was that Oklahoma needs to be better along the defensive line. And hopefully these guys, John, can step in and get that accomplished for OU, help them get better from day one.
Yeah, and David Stone talked about it, how he understands the expectations. He understands the pressure. And if anybody, I mean, he's been under the microscope for the last 3 years as a high school player, and he continued to rise to the occasion every single time, whether it was at Dell City or down there at IMG Academy. I will say that one thing that might have David Stone and Jaden Jackson on a little bit quicker trajectory, a little bit quicker path, is because they spent time at IMG Academy. I mean, that place is getting people not just ready for, graduating high school, but it's getting them ready to go compete at a high level at the collegiate level. So, if anybody has, spent time in a really high quality, strength and conditioning program, great football program, it's these two guys that could make that transition a little bit smoother. We'll see. We'll see what all transpires this spring and how they hold up against Oklahoma's offensive line and are able to withstand all the different pressures and expectations that are going to be on them. And man, I can't wait to see how they look in spring ball, in the spring game, and then obviously projecting towards the fall. We got a great bit of news also coming out of Oklahoma Media Day, and that's the return of Justin Harrington, getting that medical red shirt for 2023, giving him an extra year in 2024. We're going to talk about how important it is that he's back and what it means for Oklahoma's defense coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Here we go. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Justin Harrington will be back for 2024. This is a guy that we've been waiting for the breakout for years, right? The one that's been hyped to be a big-time contributor at safety. And then last year at Cheetah, everybody talked about how he was the most impressive Cheetah in fall camp, whether it was guys like, Teddy Lehman and Gabe Eichert or other people that were out there watching practice last fall and getting in the games. And he did look pretty good those first 2 games. And then, suffered the season-ending injury, had a interception, 6 total tackles. And so it was a limited performance for Justin Harrington, but much like the rest of the Oklahoma Sooners defense, getting back Danny Stutzman and Billy Bowman and Dejon Terry, Woody Washington for 2024, you get another experienced piece, another veteran piece that is a big time part of this defense coming back for 2024.
Huge for Oklahoma secondary that now you've got just one more experienced piece coming back. And as you pointed out, John, a piece that 3 straight off seasons in a row. And this is sort of a, hold your horses thing at times for Oklahoma fans when fool me once, fool me twice, fool me 3 times. You're not going to fool me a 4th time. But Justin Harrington has been that guy over the course of a number of off seasons for Oklahoma where there's been legitimate buzz and buzz that palpitates from the coaching staff out to a number of reporters to the fan base. And it just because of injuries and other situations hasn't totally materialized for Justin Harrington yet. And I hope that there's a storybook ending here for Justin because, again, there's been so much buzz, so much hype about him. And I don't think that buzz and hype from the Teddy Lehmans and others of the world, I don't think that happens by accident. I think Justin Harrington has shown those guys in previous springs and in previous falls that he could be a big-time playmaker for Oklahoma. And for one reason or another, predominantly injury, John, it hasn't happened yet. Well, okay, one final time. And I'm happy that for him, he got the medical hardship to come back and hopefully in this thing at Oklahoma the way that sort of you and I and a bunch of other people have envisioned this possibly going for Justin Harrington.
To see this defense continue to improve, you've got to have as much talent available as possible. This past year, they were playing Deshaun McCullough at Cheetah. They were playing Kendall Dolby at Cheetah. Peyton Bowen got some snaps at Cheetah. And you want to have as much depth as you can. And so when you get Justin Harrington back, you can deploy him at Cheetah. You can deploy him at safety. I think that he'll continue to work at Cheetah. Now, he will miss spring ball as he continues to rehab from his injury, but by fall camp, I imagine he'll be ready to kind of be working up to getting back on the practice field and potentially getting ready for the game. He may not be a significant role player until, a little bit later in the season, but any snaps that you can get from a guy that has his playmaking ability, his athleticism, and his speed, I think it's going to benefit your defense. The more athleticism that you can have out there on the field as you go up against a Tennessee Volunteers team that'll have a really good running quarterback in Nico Iamaleava. Just Nico. Let's just say Nico. Sorry, guys. It's going to matter, against the Jackson Dart, who can run the ball, for Ole Miss. I mean, you're going to have some talented players that you got to go up against. Got to have as much athleticism out there. And I think anything that keeps Peyton Bowen strictly playing safety, that's a benefit for the Oklahoma Sooners defense. You need to have that Justin Harrington at Cheetah so that you can deploy Peyton Bowen alongside Billy Bowman and Robert Spears Jennings as your safety trio, and you're not having a moonlight Peyton Bowen at Cheetah.
What does it mean for Kendall Dolby? Is Kendall Dolby still your odds-on guy to start at Cheetah? What about Dasan McCullough? I mean, how does this sort of reshape the room for Oklahoma? And again, contingent upon the fact that Justin Harrington, procedure goes well, which procedure's done, but the rehabilitation from said procedure and all the way back, and he's healthy and close to, or, same as the Justin Harrington that's been in the past. How much in your mind does it change things perhaps for Oklahoma at Cheetah?
I think you're going to still see Kendall Dolby deployed there some because he played really well when given the opportunity, had several sacks, was a playmaker in the passing game. But I also think that you're going to see, you'll see, Justin Harrington emerge and kind of be more of that do it all Cheetah, and Kendall Dolby more of the Cheetah against teams that are going to throw the football a lot. And Dasan McCullough maybe the Cheetah against teams that are going to run the football a lot. Where maybe against an Auburn, you might see Dasan McCullough a little bit more because maybe they're not going to be able to sling it around a whole bunch. Against Texas, it might be Justin Harrington because they'll run the ball and they'll run it pretty effectively. And then with Quinn Ewers, they're going to try and throw the ball as well. So I think you're still going to see a rotation at the position, but it's becoming a luxury that you have a guy like Kendall Dolby who he can play corner, he can play slot, he can play safety for you, and he can play in that Cheetah role. And he just has proven to be a playmaker out there. So, and again, I think in a second year in Brent Venables' defense, I think we see Dasan McCullough and Kendall Dolby both improve. Just like we saw Danny Stutzman improve in his second year in Venables' defense, and Billy Bowman and Woody Washington. And, all of these guys got better in that second year. And so I do think we will see an improved Kendall Dolby. How that plays out on the depth chart, the snap counts, we'll see on game day, but I still think he'll be a significant part of the team. And he might even get some snaps at corner because you do have some competition that's going to be playing out at different spots and on the depth chart at cornerback and at safety. It's just good to have that depth. And so it wouldn't surprise me to kind of see him moonlight in a lot of different ways.
Well, and I don't think this is any sort of guarantee that Justin Harrington is back for Oklahoma and winds up a starter or, earns the bulk of the snaps at Cheetah, or even I don't think you can guarantee that it's a rotational role for Justin Harrington. I hope that it is, though. And I hope it's all of those things and more, because I think it would be a storybook ending to what has been a journeyman's career in some ways for Justin Harrington, and a frustrating one. But it would be a happy ending if things go well and he can be a legitimate contributor and a difference maker for Oklahoma. I'm really rooting for it. Nico Iamaleava, by the way.
Thank you for that, Josh. One player that it's going to be easier for me to pronounce, it's Michael Tarquin, mentioned that he's intending to play offensive tackle for the Oklahoma Sooners after spending time at guard with Florida and with USC. So what does that mean for Oklahoma's offensive line? Let's find out here next on Locked On Sooners.
Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV, whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the NCAA basketball tournament, which is sneaking up. You're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV recently created their Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all of the latest in the world of sports. Again, March Madness, NBA, MLB, college football, the Sooners, not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos, you name it as well. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, well, you should. Trust us on this. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV.
So at a media day, it was mentioned by Michael Tarquin that he intends to play offensive tackle for the Oklahoma Sooners. Now, I think a lot of people expected that when he came to OU that he would be a guard for Oklahoma, because the projected offensive line had a guy like Jacob Sexton probably taking over at left tackle, Spencer Brown, the Michigan State transfer, taking over at right tackle, and you had a bit of question mark at guard with the Caden Green departure and with McCade Matire as well leaving. So what do you think, Josh, we're looking at as far as maybe a starting five along the offensive line as we sit here maybe early in the spring?
I don't know. That's the $1 million question. I really don't know. I feel good that Jacob Sexton will be one of the starters for Oklahoma. Fabechi Wiwu, I think you pencil him as one of the guards more than likely for OU. Troy Everett, I would say, has the leg up probably at center for Oklahoma. And then Spencer Brown, I'm going to say probably the leg up at the opposite tackle from Jacob Sexton. So Michael Tarquin battling there with Brown to maybe take some of those snaps or to be the plug and play third tackle for Oklahoma, or just, battling for that spot. And then beyond that, I don't know, right? One of the younger guys clearly is probably who Oklahoma's looking at to emerge at the other guard position opposite Fabechi Wiwu. And we'll see. I don't want to say that Josh Bates doesn't have a chance at center. One of these other guys that has been working at guard, John, you could see over the course of this spring and into next fall start taking some center reps. I think that's a possibility for Oklahoma. But the bottom line is, I don't know. I thought this was surprising news for Michael Tarquin today.
Yeah, I thought it was a bit surprising too, because I felt like the most direct path to playing time was going to be for him at guard. And now this is his intention. Who knows what Bill Bedenbaugh's intention is going to be for the position, because we didn't hear from him. But what we do know is that Bill Bedenbaugh will work to put his best five out there. And whether that's, maybe Spencer Brown having to move inside and play guard, Michael Tarquin playing tackle, maybe this is showing us that, okay, they've got plans to play Tarquin at tackle. We're just going to have a little bit of training camp competition to see who emerges there. Heath Ozida is a name that got, a little bit of buzz in the bowl season as a guy that could contribute at guard. And then we love Eugene Brooks and Eddie Pierre-Louis and Daniel Akinkumi as well as guys that, okay, if we're talking defensive line freshmen that could contribute early, those are three offensive line freshmen that could come in and contribute early at guard, where you do have a little bit of a hole to fill. I think, you're right in that Josh Bates, Troy Everett probably are going to be the ones competing at center. I think you're right. And Fabechi Wiwu is going to be one of your guards, probably at right guard, and Sexton is at tackle, but we could also see a Jake Taylor emerge at guard. Or tackle. And so that's good. What's going to be fascinating about this offseason is where things sit now and our assumed presumptions about what this offensive line could look like. I mean, it could all change by the time we get to the end of August and Oklahoma's about to roll out for their first game. I mean, it's still going to be a work in progress, I think, for some time. and not in a way that's like, okay, we have no answers. It's just about finding the 5 best answers and figuring out how well this line can gel and come together. But the beauty of it is they've got options from both in-house, from the transfer portal additions. We didn't even mention Garen Hatchett, who came in from Washington as well. A little bit limited experience, but again, has some experience that could compete at guard and be one of your starters. And then, you've got the 2024 signees that are going to push to make an impact early as well. We've got a couple notes, a couple things we want to touch on here before we get out of here. Josh, Oklahoma Sooners got a big win over Cincinnati, moving to 20-10 on the season, 8-9 in Big 12 play. How big was that win for the Sooners over the Bearcats?
Gigantic. And it's the magic number 20. One more thing here on Tarquin. Say it's surprising, and yet, started 28 games throughout his career, and predominantly those have been at right tackle. I guess in my mind, you just thought that he would factor in as an offensive guard helper for Oklahoma. And yet, with Gary and Hatchett coming aboard for OU, he's been, an offensive guard throughout his career. So
one other note on that. So I was talking to our guy, Brandon Olson of Locked On Gators, who obviously covered Michael Tarquin's career with the Gators last season. And he said, okay, even though Pro Football Focus listed his snaps at tackle, he played guard for the Gators. So USC, maybe he was a tackle. Florida, he was a guard. It's hard to say exactly where he's going to fit in with the Sooners, but I think we'll find out soon. Back to hoops, Josh. What do you thought? It was a big win. I mean, they looked terrible in the first half, just not good. And there's not really any other way to put it. Milos Uzan did not look good. Javian McCollum was out. They couldn't buy a bucket. And then in the second half, we're just getting to the foul line a lot. And the Big 12 officiating crew gave the Sooners a little bit of a going out the door present in that game against Cincinnati, but they were able to pick up the win in overtime, just clutch down the stretch.
Yeah. How about Darthard? Big shot to maybe save Oklahoma's season. I think probably with that win, you don't need any more to get into the NCAA tournament. I would think that probably locks up an at-large bid for Oklahoma, but why take any chances? Just go win in Austin and ensure yourself that your work is truly done. And then, maybe get a game or two in the Big 12 tournament. That you're going to the NCAA tournament at that point. But the win itself for the resume is not entirely impactful outside of the loss would have probably been devastating for the resume for Oklahoma. So they didn't play great, but you know what? They were dealing with trying to win without Javian McCollum. So that was a big time curveball for this team. And yet they just found a way to scratch, and claw and make enough plays to get the thing into overtime and obviously get it done from there. So it wasn't the prettiest performance of the season, no doubt. But in terms of what it could mean for Oklahoma's postseason hopes, it was a game like Bedlam in Stillwater that it wasn't great, wasn't pretty, and yet some heroics got Oklahoma over the top to the finish line, John, in a game that really they had to find a way to get just because your opponent was going to bring your resume down so much with a loss. So Oklahoma avoided that. I think they're in the NCAA tournament now. That, said it a little while ago, but that number 20 number in the win column historically kind of feels like the magic number to, in or out of the NCAA tournament. And in a league like the Big 12, you've played your way in. So good for Porter Moser and company, man. I thought that was a gritty win for OU on a night where really they just, it was not a well-played game in some ways for Oklahoma, and yet they found a way to go get it done.
On the diamond, Oklahoma baseball bounced back from a unfortunate weekend in Las Vegas where they went 0-2, got a big win in the midweek over Wichita State, 5-3. You look at Wichita State. I mean, that's a baseball program, a lot like Dallas Baptist, that plays bigger than their weight class. They play a lot better than the conference that they come from. They're one of those teams that can often give you fits. How important was that win for the Sooners ahead of Big 12 play? They've got a winning record going into the conference.
Oh, I think it was huge for Oklahoma. They had lost 3 straight, the front 2 of which were by double figures. So they lost 12-2 to Wright State, turned around, lost 19-9, run rule fashion to Pittsburgh. They walked 12 Panthers in that game, which I know made Skip Johnson sick to his stomach. And then obviously coughed one up on Sunday to Ohio State in a game that felt like Oklahoma was about to salvage one in Las Vegas. They didn't. So you come home, you play a good Wichita State team that had won 5 games in a row, including a nice little win for the Shockers over Iowa, and a couple of games before that, an extra innings loss to a Virginia team. So it was a Shocker team that came into Tuesday night really feeling good about itself. And Oklahoma, the pitching from Karsten early and Grant Stevens after that, really across the board was really good for Oklahoma. So they got good pitching. They scratched a couple early. Easton Carmichael, man, is red stinking hot. He drove one over the 410 sign in left the other night. So it was a big time win. It stopped a 3-game losing streak for Oklahoma. And now Oklahoma gets a UCF team that has won 5 straight. They're 9-1 on the season, and they're one of the highest ranked teams. It's early, but they're one of the highest ranked teams in the RPI. So it's your Big 12 opening series for Sooner baseball. And John, this might be a series we look back on if Oklahoma can get it, that we say, okay, well, that was a big reason why Oklahoma's an NCAA regional team.
And Oklahoma softball, they bounced back from their first loss in over a year. They beat
Texas
A&M Commerce 9-0. Kirsten Deal was fantastic. She allowed just 1 hit over 3 innings. Peyton Monticelli allowed just 1 hit, 1 walk in her 2 innings of work. Sooners jumped out 5-0 in the first. Cassidy Pickering with 2-run double, and Ella Parker with a 3-run home run. The freshman coming through in a big way in the first inning. And then Cassidy Pickering added another RBI double a little bit later in the game. So the Sooners offense is just fine. It's just a matter of, getting going early in these games, and those 5 runs that they collected in the first inning, all with 2 outs. So a really strong performance for them. They get now ready for Iowa State, who comes to Norman for a 3-game set to open Big 12 play. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in and being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Josh on Twitter at JoshOnRef, myself at John9Williams. The show is at Locked On Sooners. But until next time, he's Josh. I'm John. Boomer Sooner.